This one will be chapter 11, which I guess it should have been chapter 10, but the order of this book are kind of everywhere. You know, I wrote them down as I remembered them, not necessarily as they happened. So this should have been chapter 10, but it's chapter 11. And when I edit this video, the words should come up by now. This is the hero's friends. One time I went to bed and dreamt that Mary and I are at this mountainous town. It's not really a town, but there are a lot of tiny shops, which I guess, like climbing mountains, a metaphor in the dream world, I guess. Obstacles and overcoming them. And so it was a big deal to me when I was surprised that she wanted to come with me. We arranged to go meet with the rest of our family somewhere down the mountain, but I wanted to continue going up. In fact, I was prepared to leave my sister so I could keep climbing, but to my surprise, she wanted to follow. I spotted this cabin in some trees, and I climbed the path up to it. For part of the time, I started realizing things actually were a dream. But especially when I lost my shoe, but remembered if I ignored it, it would come back, and I kept walking. The day was sunny and cool with the breeze blowing in. When I knocked on that cabin door, there was a guy who answered it, and he said something like, "Are you here for the League's meeting?" Mary popped in to say something against that, but I answered loudly that we were indeed here for this meeting. And so he opened the door wide enough for us to enter. Someone asked for my name, and he wrote it down on a clipboard. I looked at the names, and the handwriting was not English. It looked old, and in another language. I looked around the room, and to my surprise, I see all the heroes' friends. There were all the men who helped to fight the soldiers in the caves. They were scattered around the room, waiting for the meeting to start. And I have a flower sticking out of my journal. I don't remember putting it there. It's like a lilac? It's so weird. I tell you guys, I didn't plan that. Anyway. They were scattered around the room waiting for the meeting to start, I guess. It was already kind of going. They were all speaking to each other. I saw Vincent sitting on a small, I don't know, couch. It was like Eric beside him, and the rest were talking to each other about what they were gonna... I can't tell what they were. They were all speaking in another language. It was like a mishmash of every language I've ever heard. And the rest talking to each other about anyway, Mary was confused, but I hastily explained as well as I could, chip-choppy, about what was going on, and I'll take things from here. I said that these guys were my friends, and they weren't just strangers. Even though they kind of were, I was just gonna drop it off there. We sat down, both of us, on a window seat. There was some guy named Lawrence. He set up a chalkboard on one end of the room and started scribbling some things. And you know, the funny thing about all these guys was that they were all modern looking. The last time I saw them, they were all carrying great swords and wearing tunics and had funny haircuts, but now they were all undungified. But, as I've mentioned before, the hero had the worst haircut. "Thank you all for coming here today," Lawrence began in English. "I hope we are all here and still in one piece." Lawrence was a skinny-ish dude who put glasses on the top of his head to look smart. He had a piece of chalk in his hand, and he had an orange shirt and blonde hair. Everyone in the room were kind of young. And in fact, at this point, hold on. In fact, Mary was one of the oldest there. She was 21 at the time, and in fact, at this point, I think she was asked to wait outside or something because she disappeared. I couldn't find her in the room anymore. I walked to the side. So I walked to the side of the room, looked through a window, and I saw her walking down the mountain, and I went to go take back my seat. This guy, he looked at me, and he looked straight in the eye, and then as if he was scanning me, and he said, "You look different." I said, "Yeah, I had a beard." And we both turned our heads to face the chalkboard again. Lawrence said, "As you all have realized, we have all been transported mistakenly by our friend, the hero." "Where is he?" someone shouted. Sorry, I had to interrupt the video to pull a spontaneous prank. Please ask in the comments and I will elaborate. Where is he? Someone shouted. That statement was followed by several yas and innumerable mutterings, of which I couldn't tell what they were saying. People! He fixed his glasses. Which he didn't really wear them. I don't know why he had them. As your director in all our affairs, I've already contacted the hero. He whipped out his cell phone from his pocket. Gesturing with it, he said, I tried to get him here. I couldn't convince the school to let him out. Until then, he's fully aware of his mistake, but he doesn't know how many we are. That spell was so powerful, it even said David here. He pointed to the back of the room where a figure with an indifferent expression sat. Everyone turned around to see David. And then turned back to Lawrence. All in all, there were around 20 people here, or 20 guys, but the one named David was new to me. I guess he wasn't really that important. He never showed up again. So, would anybody like to say anything? Lawrence had authority in the same sense that my professor had it, even though I might not have conveyed it in the story. I looked on him with respect. So the room shuffled around a bit, and the one standing now looked for her seat. So, a big friendly-looking guy joined me on the window seat. Anyone? Lawrence said. Surely somebody must have questions. He pointed to someone with his hand raised. It was Eric. He said, is there any chance we could find another wizard to send us back, or does anyone even curious to see whether we can go back? Eric had rounded features and chestnut brown hair, as I elaborated in my earlier story. He wore a blue-black hoodie this time. I remembered from my other dream that he was a really good fighter with a sword. And so Lawrence said, I have found other wizards to reverse the spell, but I'm so sorry, but the spell's so strong it can't be reversed. Why not? Someone yelled, and the room was in chaos again, each man wondering exactly the same thing. It was so loud, I found that this was turning out to be a nightmare, one of those nightmares within crowds, so I got up to leave. Lawrence tried to take control again. That's when Vincent stood up. He grabbed something. It looked like a candle holder, like one of the millions that my mom gets. One of those big brass ones. He walked calmly over to the chalkboard, which had a desk beside it, and then he slammed the desk with the candlestick like a gavel and silenced everyone. He banged the desk over and over until everyone froze and watched him with interest. I guess this was the closest connection to the hero, so everyone should shut up to see what he had to say. And when all was still, Vincent, who had very strong features and almost black hair with his jacket on, turned his head to Lawrence and said simply, Proceed. Thank you, was all he responded. I see that no one is taking this situation calmly. But, so, has anyone changed their minds on whether to still consider the hero the leader of this league? Raise your hand. And like 8 people raised their hand, and one of them, seeing how few had chosen to abandon the team or whether to outvote the hero as part of the team, shouted, Come on, guys, we can't be the only ones. The hero's the reason we even lost Lenny. He motioned toward an empty chair. You all, Vincent said, will have to stay after the meeting. I'll discuss this with you. And Vincent said, if I know my friend the hero, he spoke to the crowd, is that he would never do anything to harm us. This was all probably the consequence of some careless mistake on his part, or the wizard, I don't know. We can't dwell on this. This is not the reason we assembled from the miserable areas we were flung into. It's a miracle we were even together to have this meeting. I watched as he spoke with graveness and dignity. These guys are all for the Middle Ages, and I don't know what to say to them all. And he continued, this league was not established on revenge. It was established on unity and peace. In our own time, they were uneasy, restless, chaotic times, and we sought to ease that. Our loyalty to each other is the only thing we have, and the only thing we must foster now. I shifted uneasily. Lawrence nodded, and with that being said, we need a strategy. He scribbled a ton of things on the chalkboard, and they weren't in English, and invited everyone to join in on their plan. Well, I, for one, am terrible at chess, so even when I did understand things, I couldn't help that much. And so I watched them make a map of a certain area, and I generally just didn't interfere. And so it was like meandering in the dream, and eventually when everything quieted down, I went out of the room and I ran back down the mountain to go find my sister, and that was the end of that. But that was interesting. That I woke up soon after, and then all those different characters just like Vincent and Eric started joining in on the dreams. And then, I guess the next time I will see you all, I will read from my second journal, because these journals don't contain any of their or our adventures, and that's gonna be fun. Yay! We get to move on to the second journal of the 9 journals. So thank you all for listening to my story, and I hope to see y'all again in my next video. And the next video. Goodbye, y'all.